So we were looking at the end of K53, talking about a canopy, an ice canopy. In the beginning of God created the heavens and the earth. Then God said in verse 6 of 1:6 of Genesis, let there be an expanse, rakia, flattened out, stretched out, solid, super cold, metallic hydrogen. And I decided, well, let's take a look at what that is. And we're looking at SUPERCOLD. The Earth's protective, supercold metallic fiber optic crystalline ice canopy. And it ends with, on day number 3, God. Let's see. Covered this on day number 3. So we get to that spot. Dr. Carl Baugh wrote a book on this super crystalline, super cold water canopy. On day number 3, God would create the other elements in perfect balance. He created the botanical life forms, full bloomed, with the seeds within the life form. Genesis 1:6-8. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, all up there. And the evening and the morning were the second day. It is obvious from the biblical context that this firmament included 2 composite layers of water, adjacent on each side, with a firmament in the middle. Some biblical exegetes have suggested that this firmament referred to the expanse and the water on the surface of the earth, which is in one composite form. They also maintain that we had a bubble of water approximately 11 miles above the earth as a second layer. However, the clear scriptural mandate is that this entire firmament was encased by layers of water on both sides as a composite part of the firmament. Later, the scripture describes the seas and the oceans on the surface of the earth, so this would not be a good idea. We're talking about the firmament, the ice canopy above the earth, 11 miles up approximately. We can therefore envision a model of the firmament approximately 11 miles above the surface of the earth. We believe the firmament was approximately 11 miles above the surface because there exists a heat sink at that elevation. It is between minus 130 degrees Fahrenheit and minus 180 degrees Fahrenheit at that elevation. Nearer to the earth it is warmer, and further from the earth it is warmer for at least some space. If we were to amass the amounts of water present on earth and assimilate the greater amount of water within the earth, this would leave the approximate remainder of a 10 to 20 feet thick lineal dimension double encasement of water in solid crystalline form as the firmament. What is water when it's that cold? Hydrogen in the middle, oxygen on both sides, metallic in quality. Here we have a firmament, not just water in a cloud or vaporous form, but in solid form, because if it were vaporous, it would cover the entire earth and sunlight would not get to the earth. And instead, this is super crystalline cold. The sunlight transparents through, and it's protected from ultraviolet light, and actually does a lot of other things. Let's check it out. Now, note that there are a number of presumptions made in this study in order to draw these conclusions, not the least of which is that conditions on the earth were dramatically different before multiple earthquakes, volcanoes, etc. caused the catastrophic worldwide flood. Well, how would that be? How would this crystalline canopy, super frozen, work? Volcanoes shooting up in the sky, 11 miles up, breaks it up. It's ice, and it comes down to warmer temperatures, 40 days, 40 nights of rain. If the proposed temperature range at 11 miles up is incorrect in this age, the possibility of it being that cold in the pre-flood period, or the location of the canopy in the mesosphere, allows for a solid, super frozen water canopy to exist at that time. The superfrozen ice canopy was presumed in this study to be causal to the higher air pressure, which afforded the super large life forms and extraordinarily long lifespans, super amount of oxygen. What do you think that'll do? We've had spheres made where Plant forms and small life forms, animal life forms, grow super large and fast and live longer. In any case, if the conditions in the pre-flood age supported such a canopy, then a key source of the flood and the existence of super large life forms, as fossils indicate, and longer lifespans, etc., are corroborated. But know that since we cannot measure all the parameters today because the Earth is so different, in order to support this solid canopy model, not a theory, then we will have to wait and see how God did this when he recreates the new heavens and the new earth. So far, this seems the most plausible explanation that does not border so heavily on science fiction. Joseph C. Dillow, The Waters Above. The amount of rain in the flood. The final reasoning for understanding the waters above as a heavenly ocean and not as clouds is that only such an ocean of water could have supplied sufficient water to maintain a 40-day global rainfall. And we see that in the continental shelves, deeper oceans. But in the shallower oceans, the continents support that amount of water. The maximum amount of water that can be maintained in clouds in our entire present atmosphere is only about 10.54 centimeters for a saturated atmosphere with a sea level temperature of 28 degrees Celsius. That amounts to 4.14 inches or a 40-day rainfall rate of 0.00431 inches per hour. Hardly a torrential downpour. The Hebrew context shows that the water and the firmament are in a very special form. It was apparently in crystalline form, pure, transparent, so that the sun could transfer through, relatively thin ice. It was probably no more than 20 feet thick at best, but so super cold that it wouldn't have blocked the sunlight from going through. The Hebrew word used to describe this firmament is really quite astounding. In fact, if we do not follow the Hebrew literally, our model does not work at all. The biblical record has to be literal, or it really isn't verifiable. This firmament had to be of literal composite, just as the scripture stated. The word used in the Hebrew to describe this firmament is rakia, which means to compress or pound out and stretch out this arch of heaven in thin metal sheets. Dillow says on this, the Septuagint translated the Hebrew word rakia by the Greek word steroma, which was used in classical Greek to express a solid body and not an empty expanse or thin clouds. It had the idea of a vault of heaven as an embossed bowl, like metallic. Baugh says, on day number one, God concluded the creation of the day by saying it was good. On days 3 through 6, he also concluded the day's creations by saying it was good. However, on day number 2, God did not say that it was good. On day number 1, he had already pronounced it as good. He did not create new elements on day number 2. He simply used the elements he created on day number 1, the elements of hydrogen and oxygen. Many very fine scientific creation researchers have envisioned for decades that there was a greenhouse effect before the flood, and in all probability there was. They envisioned that there was water vapor, perhaps in cloud form, above the Earth. We maintain solid crystalline ice canopy high enough 11 miles up. However, if we simply use the vaporous form of water, the scriptural mandate in Genesis 1:14-18 cannot be fulfilled because it says the stars were set or enhanced, added in full dimension to this firmament. Clouds don't enhance, they block. If the firmament cover had simply been water vapor, the stars would only have been seen in approximately 80% of the detail that we see today. Yet the biblical record says that they were enhanced. The original Hebrew used in magnified word used in this word Nathan. The literal translation means that they were added and yielded in full dimension within the firmament. The only way this could have worked is for the word rakia to have its literal meaning. Rakia, compressed or pound out and stretched out in thin metal sheets, the hydrogen. Researcher Dan Cook spoke to one of the physicists involved in the hydrogen bomb project at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. That physicist related to him that the scientists there some years back took the elements of water and compressed them under super cold cryogenic circumstances. Hydrogen became near metallic in form and took on the characteristics of metal. So there was an experiment to support this. it became crystalline, transparent, fiber optic, superconductive, and ferromagnetic. All of these characteristics have tremendous implications. The hydrogen in the water was compressed and energized, and the pressure held in stasis form because of the crystalline ice on either side. For the Bible, the biblical record states that God made the firmament in the middle, with water above and water beneath. Under such supercold circumstances, where great pressure exists, in addition to tremendous energy, hydrogen takes on metallic characteristics. Envision the Earth before the flood, with a firmament consisting of compressed, energized hydrogen, taking on near metallic characteristics in the middle of a solid water foundation formation suspended about 11 miles above the Earth. This configuration would have done some wonderful things. On day 4, when the sun was created, the energy of the sun upon this hydrogen would have caused a gently pink coloration in the sky. At sunrise and sunset, there would have been a vivid pink coloration, and at midnight, there would have been a magenta pink sky. In other words, the sky before the flood was never totally dark. Dr. Baugh states, the biblical record states that God made the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. We have assumed for centuries that the greater light was the sun and the lesser light was the moon. The moon certainly bears an impact on and to the same degree affects the Earth. The moon does not always remain in visual form, however. The lesser light ruling the night, and consequently was not only the moon, even though the moon certainly was a purpose in the orchestrated model. The lesser light ruling the night included transfer of energy from the day side of the Earth along the lines of this rakia firmament. The electromagnetic energy was carried along the elemental lines of near metallic hydrogen, which was fiber optic in nature. This would cause a twilight glow on the night side of the Earth, while on the day side of the Earth, the greater light would literally rule the day. The statement is made that this light ruled the day. Scientists and researchers are finding that the most important color in the entire spectrum is pink. This is the color that is produced by energized hydrogen. They find that plants grow better under a pink light and that individuals respond in mood to pink light. Researchers have found that when a person is affected by the right spectrum of pink light, the brain secretes norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is a natural tranquilizer and neurotransmitter. Before the flood, man was dominated by various spectra of pink light. The tranquility of his environment has offered him the ability to have this brain work at a maximum efficiency. The firmament made that possible with a gentle pink glow in various spectral forms, with the greater light ruling the day and the lesser light ruling the night. God made a wonderful orchestral creation, and man ultimately received the full benefit. There are records, archaeologically speaking, discerned among many creatures which refer to a time in the past when the sky hung low. Physicists at Lawrence Livermore Laboratories took the element of hydrogen and an element of water and compressed it under supercold temperatures. When the pressure reached a certain degree, under diamond points, the hydrogen took on near metallic characteristics, superconductive, transparent, fiber optic, ferromagnetic, and crystalline in form. The Hebrew word for firmament is rakia, which means to press or pound together into thin metal sheets. This is the explanation of how the canopy or arch of heaven was formed and stretched out around the world in thin metal sheets. One of the elements in water, hydrogen, binds together in crystalline lattice. Under such pressurized transformation, the hydrogen in water takes on the characteristics as described in the biblical account of creation. We are informed in Genesis 1:16 that the greater light was to rule the day and the lesser light was to rule the night. The transfer of light fiber optically means that the greater penetration of light during the day would produce varying shades of pink, and the lesser light of night would produce a deeper shade of pink in addition to an enhanced moon. Magnified. Biologists have found that the greatest plant growth is encouraged under pink light. Further investigation has revealed that it is pink light which optimally triggers the growth of cells within plants. A contributing factor is the enormous size of plant life before the flood was energized hydrogen in the firmament, giving off this pinkish light. The enormous size of plant life and the antediluvian world also dictate dictated the size of certain forms of animal life or dinosaurs. So Dr. Baugh says,